No, he did. He didn't get mad.
Nah.
Why would he get mad?
Yeah.
Some people do when I say things.
That's my secret. I'm always angry, right? All right, welcome to Christmas 2023, part of a Christmas series. Tonight, we're talking about Jolly Saint Nick. If you missed the last one, it's Christmas time. We're talking about the prophecy of the coming Messiah, what he was going to kind of look like, what was happening in that time, what was going on in the culture, what was going on in their religion, the language. When we talk about language, location, and prophecy, that he kind of fulfilled all of that in this one little time, and that's when the perfect time when he came. So that was last week. We talked about that. This week we're going to talk about, since it's Christmas, and everybody knows the jolly old fellow, Jolly Saint Nick.
It's funny because the real Saint Nick was not jolly.
No, he wasn't jolly. So on the video and on the website, when you go back to watch this thing, to make sure you're studying, because that's what you're going to do. You do that all the time, right?
No answer.
And crickets. I actually have a cool picture, what I'm going to put on there. So make sure you go and look at it. I've already sent a preview to him, so I'll put it on there too.
Or did you send it to my email?
To your text. I texted it to you.
Oh, okay.
You
I saw that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a link.
No, it's not a link. That was just a picture.
Oh, that's a cool picture.
But
that was true.
that's going to be the like featured image for today's video.
No, that was cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's from a painting. It's pretty cool. So you'll see. We'll get there. All right. So we will get into the Bible, but first, before we get into the Bible, let's discuss Jolly Saint Nick. Okay, and then we're gonna weave it into the Word. You'll see how this works. So Jolly Saint Nick, the first inclination that we have of anybody in history who might be classified as Saint Nicholas is Saint Nicholas of Bari, B-A-R-I. And Bari is also referred to as Myra. So that would be, for example, if I told you, hey, I live in North Spring, someone else might say, well, I live in the Woodlands. We're basically talking about the same thing, right? So it's Saint Nicholas of Bari or Saint Nicholas of Myra. That's actually, there's a river that flows. So basically, Turkey is right here. It doesn't show you the lake in here, but there's a river. See this little point right here? There's a river that flows right out there. Where that river meets up with the Mediterranean, that is where Myra is, and it's just I think it's like 5 miles inland or something like that. It's not very far from the coast. It's a coastal city, and it's near modern day Dimr, Turkey. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not. Dimr, D-M-R-E, could be Dimri, I don't know. I said Dimr because I don't know any better. I don't speak Turkish, so I don't know. But when it was under Greek influence at this time, it was called Myra. So over time, when the Turks came in, so let's talk about that for a minute. So we have approximately March 15th. 270 AD. So if Christ was crucified around 30 to 33 AD, okay, this is under Easter series. So we're not going to go into detail on that. You can look at the Easter series. We talk about the kind of narrowing in on when the actual day of preparation was actually also the Passover, all that kind of stuff. That's in the Easter series. We're not going to go into that. But approximately, let's just say 32, 33. They narrow it even more for you. AD. So about 240 years later, approximately, we don't have a for certain because they didn't have like, oh, let me go down and get an official certified copy of your birth certificate. I mean, it's like mom's always said I was born on such and such day. Well, maybe mom was crazy. That happens depending on how the child acts, right? So approximately March 15th, 270 AD, and he died, what we believe to be December 6th, 343. Okay. So about 73 years old. Okay? So 73, that's a pretty good time for someone during this time. When you start getting into the 70s, 80s, 90s, even today, 70s, 90s is not anything to laugh at. But 70s back then was, well-to-do. Now, even we look at a few years before this, approximately 270 to 300 years before this. I'm sorry, my bad. 250 to 140 years before this, when the apostle John, who wrote John, he was writing Revelation, and he was probably in his 95 to 98 years old on Patmos, the island of Patmos. So he was way out there. And even today, it was around around 180, because he wasn't born the same year as Jesus. He was a few years younger. So anyway, we're getting into minute detail, but this is partly why I like to do these kind of studies. Like we go through the scriptures verse by verse, right? We do that on a regular basis. But I like to go off on a rabbit trail on stuff sometimes, because we have a hard time, I think, culturally understanding the connection to our biblical history with what actually is happening in the real world. And I think we have this disconnect where it almost feels like two separate timelines. It's like the Marvel universe and the DC universe are both somehow working separately. And which one's better and why is it Marvel? It's like.
Does Anno Domini start from the birth of Jesus?
So.
Well, Jesus was born in 4 BC.
I know what I'm saying.
So,
born in 4 BC?
No, it's not actually 4 BC. He was actually born in.
The Roman calendar.
Correct. They've had to adjust it because
AD is Anno Domini, right?
it means year of our Lord.
Does that start when he was born?
No. So technically, he was born in 2 BC, which before Christ. But how can you be before Christ? Because they started the years separately, and when the Magi arrive, they say, hey, this happened. They arrive on December 25th. And then whenever Herod allows for, or he passes and his children take over, Jesus is allowed to come back. And that's probably closer to when they would have said 0 AD, starting over. The year of our Lord, because he was alive. We knew that whatever. It's sketchy. Somebody just pointed and was like, okay, 0 AD is here. Okay. Oh, Jesus was actually born before the year of our Lord. But we'll.
At that time, they wouldn't even use that terminology.
Correct. Yeah. We're looking at that really kind of from here, looking backwards.
You think he was born and then he was able to go to Bethlehem later on?
No, he was born in Bethlehem, and he was there for a while, because it says he was a newborn baby in a manger, and then it says that he was a toddler. The word in the Greek, it says a toddler. So he's there for at least a year or two. Before he's able to get out of there. So
they had to leave, because
Herod chased him out. So that's why I'm saying it has to do with those timelines, not necessarily exactly on his birth date. We got off into the weeds on that.
So it was a few years
that's
since
okay.
King Herod passed when he was able to go.
And then Herod passed, I think it was around 2 or 3 AD.
Okay.
And that's when they were able to, I don't know that that's when they did, but then they came back from Egypt, because remember, they escaped to Egypt. Remember, they escaped out of Egypt to wander the wilderness and then go conquer the promised land where the Messiah comes. And then he escapes to Egypt to escape death. Yeah. Which is kind of ironic.
Oh, that's
All right. No, I mean, there's good questions. And that's what these kind of studies that are not going word by word, this is kind of what I want us to talk about, because it helps us to really kind of 3-dimensionally construct what is happening and what's going on during this time, right?
It also helps with Harvey's attention span.
Yeah. All right, so Myra is in Asia Minor, and it was under Greek control at the time. Later, the Turks come in. The Turks come in around 1087. So there's a couple hundred years where it's under Greek influence, and then they come in later. There are many myths and legends about Saint Nicholas. Most of them are unsubstantiated. If you go to Wikipedia, if you go look up, stnicholas.com or whatever is out there, most of those, I don't know if that's a real website. Don't look it up, Brian. But there are a lot of myths and legends about what St. Nicholas is and what he's done. So one of the biggest ones is in the Council of Nicaea, which, remind us again, what's the Council of Nicaea?
329.
325.
Oh, is that when they first got together?
And they kind of said, here's the books of the Bible. We're going to say this is the books of the Bible. And they came up with the Nicene Creed. The Nicene Creed is where it's like, hey, we believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that he was fully God and fully man. He came to earth as a human, and kind of this creed of like, this is what we kind of believe, guys.
Well, why that came about, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
churches were arguing on which gospels to preach.
Correct.
Like to be the church down the street was preaching the gospel of Thomas, right?
Right.
And then let's just say Genesis Church, you're teaching the gospel of Paul, and you think they're teaching false doctrine. They think you're teaching false
Correct.
doctrine. They were literally arguing. They actually went to swords and punching and fights.
Right.
So the Council of Nicaea is like, no, we're gonna have to get together. We're going to set in stone what's going to be the New Testament, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they
There were
said it
books that
in.
were thrown out of the New Testament.
Right.
Remember, what was it? The book of Thomas.
Book of Thomas, the Gospel of Thomas.
Benjamin, not Benjamin. Was it?
No, I can't remember. There's a
Paul's,
Sidekick?
Barnabas. Yeah.
There's the Gospel of
Barnabas.
And those are interesting because you can read them today.
And even like in the Old Testament, you got Enoch. You just look them up. Yeah, you can look them online. So the deal is they may have those books, even though we're not including them in what we call the canon or the established Bible.
The 66 books of the Bible.
Yeah, the 66, but they may have historical content in them.
What was cool about Tom, the Gospel of Thomas, talks about Jesus is adolescence, which is not in the King James.
Correct.
That's true.
It talks about him healing a bird and him healing his buddy that fell off a rooftop when he was 13. So it gives you insight.
Yeah.
Thomas.
So there's a lot of legends around St. Nicholas. Okay, same thing. Like there's unfounded, we're not sure. Council of Nicaea 325. There's Arianism happening, and that just means that we are the only race that can possibly come into Christ, which is kind of nuts. Because all the three sons of Noah are included in the gospel message. If you're looking at that, you can look up Sons of Noah. Got a blog post about that. And so then we see there's a legend. So the official log of who was there, who signed the Council of Nicaea, like way down at the bottom, it's almost like the person got added, St. Nicholas of Myra. And it's on a couple of rolls, but like the official roll, it's not on there. So they're like, okay, I think it just got added later. And there's two ideas. One is he was there and they just like, oh, why didn't he sign his name? Like, here, let me put his name in there. The other one is he was never there, but they were like, why was St. Nicholas not here? That doesn't even make sense. That dude's awesome. And he would totally agree with us. Let's just add his name. So I don't know for certain. But the other part of the legend from the Council of Nicaea is that there's a guy named Arius there, or Arius. Huh?
That Arius, actually, a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses believe come from Arius.
So he was actually preaching that Jesus was limited in his power, that he wasn't fully God. He was a good guy, all this kind of stuff. And the legend is that St. Nicholas gets up and slaps the junk out of this guy. And so that's the image. I have a picture of it, so I will post it.
When you sent me that, I was sitting right there explaining to you that he wasn't so jolly. He liked to throw punches. Like within 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an oxymoron, jolly, not really.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that in just a few minutes here. So St. Nicholas, from the start, is this dude's not playing around. Like, if that's a legend, it's not like you're going to say, Harvey has always been clean cut. He's always made proper decisions. He's always, he met one woman when he was 18 years old, married her, and then they had their children. And like, you're like, I know his story. This is not lining up. Praise God, he's redeemed and given great grace and mercy to Harvey, right? So Harvey has great earthly experience that God can use to give testimony, right? to great grace. So the point is like you kind of know, you're like, that doesn't line up. But apparently, who Saint Nicholas was lines up with that dude's not messing around. So that's pretty cool. That his known mode of operation is, I'm going to be speaking for the truth. I'm speaking for Jesus. He is fully man. He's fully God, and I'm not playing around. Standing up for the gospel. So that's really cool. So that's a great start. Then we get into a little bit more about him. He's likely, again, there's no like, now it's all digital records, whatever, but likely born to parents in modern, what we call today, Pamphylia, Turkey, which is also labeled, not labeled, but listed in the Bible in a number of times of people coming and going in the New Testament. Pamphylia, Turkey, to Greek Christians. People were already believers. Remember, this is a couple hundred years after Christ at this point. It's already kind of spread. Remember Paul's missionary journeys. His parents were likely converts because of Paul's churches that were planted. So that's pretty cool. Isn't that cool? And so he's born around 270 AD. So we've got probably about 200 years plus since Paul and his journeys and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, think about how old is the U.S. right now?
Since 1776.
So we're 250 years in. So it would be around about that one of the founding fathers, it would be like, I would say, hey, my great grandpa was George Washington. He'd be like, dude, that's awesome. They'd be able to say Paul was a missionary, came to here, and then it was boom, 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 but 3 or 4 generations, and here I'm a result of that. So that's pretty cool. Okay, very early gospel message. And it said that after his parents' death, the wealth that they had, I don't know how much it was. There was no information in a couple of sources I looked. That he took it and he distributed their wealth to the poor because he was serving in the church. St. Nicholas. So that's kind of your first. Yeah, maybe Salvation Army. I don't know. Of the time. Except for he's not robbing from the rich to give to the poor. He's taking from my parents' wealth and I'm giving it to the poor.
That was a good one, Mr. Chris.
So it's kind of like this is your first inkling that St. Nicholas is not messing around, and he is a fan of the gospel, and he is wanting to give to others.
He has a heart for the poor, like the scriptures tell us to have.
Correct. Right. So we go here that there's a story that this man was so poor and he had gotten into such credit problem with some people and bad guys in town that he was basically selling his daughters out. 3 daughters. And St. Nicholas heard about this, and this is legend, okay? But the legend is that he took a bag of gold and put it into the window at nighttime, and the father found it and was able to pay the marriage dowry to marry that daughter off and get her away from that situation. The next night, he left another bag of gold and paid so the daughter could leave. And the third night, he did that. And the dad stayed up to catch St. Nicholas dropping the bag of gold in there to pay that. Legend, whatever. Now, we do know that he did hand out his parents' wealth, so that could have been one of the people he gave the wealth to. I don't know. But we see that he's not just distributing wealth, not just giving gifts, but he's got like a distinct purpose behind what he's doing. He's doing it to spread the gospel, or he's doing it to help people in tough situations. In need. So that's the St. Nicholas, not the Jolly St. Nick, but that's the St. Nicholas of history. So a lot of times you'll see that some of the early images of St. Nicholas, not even of Santa Claus as we know him, the big jolly ho ho ho, but St. Nicholas, a lot of times you'll see him and he'll either have 3 little bags, which are the 3 bags of gold from that myth, that legend, or you'll even see they'll have 3 gold balls, which represent like 3 gold coins or 3 gold, nuggets of gold or whatever it is. And especially in Spain and Portugal, for some reason, when they saw that, they said, oh, well, St. Nicholas likes oranges. And so the big deal for them was giving 3 oranges to the kids at Christmas time. And it's a big deal for them to give the good oranges at Christmas time in Spain. And sometimes that happens to us. My wife tells me that she would get an orange at Christmas time.
Yeah, I wonder if that represented the Trinity.
I don't know.
Because it's always 3.
It's always 3.
Maybe it's one of the things that Nick was called Arius about.
Right.
Arius was putting down the Trinity. He's like, basically it's ludicrous.
Correct.
And that's one thing that set Nicholas off.
Correct.
So think about it. Could have been some kind of meaning in the three balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. And that's speculation, but I tend to want to agree with you. All right. I'm glad Brian agrees, because
Otherwise, Chris would take me out.
the next few moments we're hinging on whether Brian agreed or not. So in 1087, the Greek Christians, remember this was Greek territory here because Paul's missionary journeys. 1087, so this is 1,000 years after Paul's come through here. So this is huge. I mean, they're Christians are living there. Okay, now this is after the Romans had kind of fallen. This is also remember, they were being persecuted. They were being torn up by lions and fights, and they were being torched. They were being tied up to poles and burned and whatever.
How long after the resurrection did Paul write his epistles?
No, it's about 65 to 70 to about 85 to 90, somewhere in that range is what I remember. He may look it up. He may have more information, but we'll come back to that in a minute.
Years after the resurrection?
No, AD. So if the resurrection's in 33, so we're
already ascended before Paul came along.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
But see, that's why the disciples didn't take him serious. Like, well, you never even witnessed Jesus.
Right.
They didn't accept Paul at first.
That's right.
Like, you've never seen him. We've seen him.
That's true. Good point.
And we talked about that last summer during our 14 apostles.
Don't you remember?
He wasn't here.
That's why it's controversy these days when pastors call themselves apostle, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't really know.
Yeah. So 1087, the Greek Christians were now under the new Muslim Turks, and they then took and venerated people like St. Nicholas. They were like, hey, we're being crushed, we're being oppressed, we're being pushed by these Muslims that are invading the territory, coming from here around. And so we're going to hold on to some of the people who were fighters of the faith early on, and that included St. Nicholas. So they went from Nicholas of Myra to St. Nicholas at that time, around 1087 AD. So that was less than 1,000 years ago. So we have already St. Nicholas officially, according to the church. There are some people who are particularly interested in St. Nicholas, like it's the patron saint of, what's the one where you lose something and it's a patron saint of, yeah, it's like such and such, help me find my lost, earring or whatever.
Apollonia, she was a lady, and she was, I guess, martyred. They pulled all her teeth out one by one. So she is the saint when you
Of dentistry?
You go to the dentist, right?
Oh, man.
The saint of Apollonia.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's kind of messed up. It's yeah. So I'm not into the saint stuff. I mean, saints are cool.
Well,
I mean, they're believers of the faith.
All the disciples, the Catholic Church was one that gave them sainthood.
Right.
So if you refer to Saint Paul, it's not like you're being blasphemous.
No. But my problem is, I don't pray on behalf of Paul for anything, because Jesus is the intercessor between us and God.
Not any of the apostles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're still a saint. They're still, a person in faith. So I'm fine with that. So some people that have a particular interest, a diverse group of people would be sailors, children, archers. I don't know why. I mean, you don't know me asking why. And pawnbrokers. Yeah, I don't know. You go to a pawn shop, the person running is a pawnbroker.
Yeah, but there were pawn shops way before the Crusades.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have a slip of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know why those people like look to Saint Nicholas. I'm sure it's in some sort of convoluted legend, myth, whatever. You know, they could just anybody will hold on to anything to have a rabbit's foot, right? That's kind of you know, you've got those athletes. I'm sure you've seen those athletes like, well, I don't wash my socks. We won 3 games in a row.
Oh, some of that stuff is so foolish.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. So I'm not into that stuff. I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious, right? So
That's funny, dude.
Like Jewish.
yeah.
Jewish. I'm not really a Jew. I'm just Jewish.
In the 1100s to 1300s is what we kind of classify as the Middle Ages. During the Middle Ages, on the evening of December 6th, the kids would be bestowed a gift in the honor of St. Nicholas. Why? I don't know. Just it was happening in the Middle Ages. Just as a tradition. I don't know. Maybe it was the story of him giving the bags of gold that became the gold balls, that became the oranges. I don't know. But December 6th, in the Middle Ages, that night, we're going to give gifts to the kids. Okay? So that's kind of the beginning. So we're building up to. Do you see where we're going here? We're building up to St. Nicholas. Now, we get to the 1400s and 1500s, and we get to a man named Martin Luther. Has anybody heard of him?
Yeah.
All right. Martin Luther moved the gift giving in honor of St. Nicholas from December 6th to the evening of December 24th,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Christmas Eve, which is what happens today. Martin Luther was the one who precipitated that change. So he didn't just say, hey, Catholic Church, I got some problems. Wake up, it's Reformation Day. He also said, hey, why are you doing, like, let's correlate this to something more important than just St. Nicholas here. So that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I get it.
That's actually pretty cool to me. And that's, our family has always been, hey, Santa comes, he's not the standalone thing. Santa comes to help us celebrate the birth of Jesus.
Right.
And because of the great gift of Jesus to mankind, we celebrate that by giving gifts to one another, and Santa brings gifts. And that's kind of the way we've always kind of worded it. That way, it's not like focusing on Santa. Of course, they're like, I got rollerblades or whatever the thing is. But it's always in conjunction to Santa helping us celebrate Jesus' birth. So that's kind of no. This sounds like it's going to be a bad idea.
It's a Santa Claus movie.
Santa Claus horror movie?
It's not a horror movie, but it's like he whoops a bunch of bad dudes in it, and
That's
like
bad Santa with Billy Bob Thornton.
oh man, yeah. Just look it up.
That's a
Look
little
it up.
different.
Look
But
up
yeah,
Violent Night.
it's a little different.
You
But
guys,
It was a funny movie. I thought it was funny.
y'all are messed up.
yeah, we are. We need help, Brad.
All right, in the 1500s, in England, they had a person who was named Father Christmas. It wasn't Santa Claus or St. Nicholas. It was just Father Christmas.
Huh.
And I don't know exactly where that came from, but also you can look at the like myths and legends and whatever folklore. And England also came out with like Jack Frost and that kind of stuff, right? So it's Father Christmas. It's just some unknown random dude who we celebrate Christmas. And that person wore great big robes of red and green colors with fur lining around it and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the first visual representation of what we would think of as Santa Claus.
So he helped establish the Christmas holiday.
Right. Now, I don't know how connected to the birth of Jesus Father Christmas was celebrating it. In the 1500s, they didn't have nonstop commercials. It wasn't so commercialized and so, shopping driven. So I'm not even saying negative about Father Christmas because I don't have enough information.
Right.
But it wasn't St. Nicholas and it wasn't just Jesus. There's Father Christmas, Mother Nature and whether Father Time. This is kind of this unknown, I don't know. It's kind of sketchy. It's a little sketchy.
Well, think about it, man. When it got dark back then, there was a lot of downtime for superstition.
And you just made up stuff.
Yeah,
Or that-
especially like
or that.
during like the Salem witch trial, you can accuse somebody of being a witch. You can't go to the edge of the forest. I mean, there was so much superstition during this period you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's true. That is true. Good point.
All right, so in 1912, so now we're going to go all the way up. Well, let's go to 1890s. In the 1890s, they started to include this Santa Claus dressed up like Father Christmas
Oh, okay.
in parades. All right, that was in the 1890s. In 1912, we see the first Santa Claus, white beard. Now, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to say this. The original Santa Claus, he wasn't big and fat and jolly. He was thin. He had a white beard. He had a bald head. All right, and he's typically depicted in like bishops' outfits because he was a member of the clergy. So in 1912, we see the first time in film, which is silent film, I believe, Santa Claus, like the ho 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 that we know today, represented in that character in 1912 in the U.S. That's the first time. Surprise, surprise, right? Way to get it wrong, U.S. Right? The USPS in 1912 also begins to respond to children's Santa letters.
They still do that?
They don't do. It goes to charities that will run that stuff.
Okay.
It goes to the North Pole. It goes to different charities that will help answer those. And then you begin taking pictures with Santa. The earliest record we have is 1918 to take the Santa.
Oh, they actually did that.
So they sit on his lap, take your pictures. Tell him what you want. We won't let Brian sit on his lap.
Look at my Facebook. The last
I was
post
gonna
did.
say,
We won't let Brian sit on his lap. That'd be scary.
yeah, that would be very scary. I agree.
All right.
I might get arrested.
And then in 1955, so 10 years after World War II, NORAD begins tracking Santa with the satellite, with the radar. NORAD.
Radar.
It's radar. North American radar. So,
Christmas tree came from Germany. The idea that custom.
well, that actually also came up in my studies too. I didn't go into Christmas tree. I was like, well, I only have so much time. But actually, someone was talking about a Christmas tree, and it was an atheist, and I think it was Domitian cut down the tree to basically be like, no, atheism is wrong, Jesus is real, and cut the tree down. And so, cutting the Christmas tree was against atheism. So I thought that's pretty cool. We cut our tree this year.
But then you set it up.
And then we set it back up.
So
But we set it where we wanted it, and we decorated it with Jesus themes on it.
Yeah, you have like Christian ornaments, not just random ones, right? That's good.
Yeah. Now, there are people who try to paganize all the things. Oh, those Christmas little balls on the Christmas tree are all pagan. You can get carried away.
Yeah, I've seen
God knows my heart,
I've
right?
seen that.
My heart is each thing that we put on the tree either has a sentimental value or it has spiritual value to it.
Well, Claus used to be spelled with a K, which was German. It was Klaus.
Klaus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I did see something about that.
Right. And then later they also, in Pennsylvania Dutch, they had Belsnickel. Belsnickel is nigh.
Yeah.
And he would come around and say, are you impish or admirable? Anyway, that's a whole separate thing. All right, so now that we know kind of the story behind Saint Nicholas, who slowly over the years, I forgot one more point here. In the 1500s as well, the Germany, Czech, kind of Central East Europe, they wanted to get away from England was going on with Father Christmas. They wanted to change that, and so they actually changed to what's called the person who came and dropped off the gifts. It wasn't even Saint Nicholas; it was Christkind, like kindergarten, and Christkind is literally translates to the Christ child. The Christ child.
Wow.
And so that's the person that would come and visit and bring the gifts and whatever. Now, for me, I mean, I guess you could go there if you're gonna make up stuff. You can make up whatever you want to make up. But if I'm celebrating a newborn baby in a manger, and that baby is now going to go and travel and give gifts, like that doesn't make sense to me. So, well, if you're making up stuff, you can just make up whatever you want, right? Doesn't hurt my feelings. So, now that we've talked about that, let's look at what it looks like to do some gift giving through the Bible. So let's go to Matthew 7:11. If you got your Bible with you, hopefully you do. If you don't, you can pull up your phone and open the app.
It's the season for receiving. Y'all forget that.
Season for receiving. Okay. Matthew 7:11. This is a great verse. If you don't have a Bible, you're welcome. They got Bibles over there. If you don't have a favorite version of the Bible, then you need to be reading the Bible more. So you have a favorite version. I'm using mine, which is the modern English version as usual. Matthew 7:11, it says, I'm actually going to go back above that to verse 9. It says, what man is there among you who, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? That seems kind of something like I would do maybe as a prank.
Yeah, that's like
But if my kid's legitimately hungry, I'm not like, here's some gravel, chew on that, kid, because then I've got dental bills and I got all this other stuff. So you're not going to do that, right? Or if he asks for a fish, I'm going to give him a snake. Because not very much meat on a snake. So it's also a snake. Yeah. Unless I'm trying to prank him, then I might do that anyway.
one of those fake ones.
So if you then, being evil, ouch. Jesus is red letters here. Jesus says, well, then if you're a good father, and you, being a good father, are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Therefore, everything you would like men to do to you, do also to them, for this is the law of the prophets. So the gift giving here is the season for receiving? No. Giving. And when I give to my kids, I don't say, man, you now owe me, 17 hours of work this week. We don't equate like you just give to your kids. It's just what you do. I provide for my family. And we work tirelessly to do things for them and with them. It's not based on I'm getting something in return from this, except for just the joy of being a parent. And the headache of being a parent, let's be honest. There's a little bit of both, right? But it is a great joy to be a parent. And so when we look at gift giving, we should really look at it through the eyes of I'm giving this for the sake of giving it, not what I'm getting in return. That's what I'm seeing in the scripture. So let's go to Luke 11. Matthew, Mark, Luke's a few pages over here. Luke 11. Let's go back up here to verse 9. Luke 11:9. Or no, let's go up here. Go verse 5. I'm sorry. Luke 11:5. So Jesus is talking, red letters again. Which of you has a friend and shall go to him at midnight and say to him, friend, lend me 3 loaves? It's like Elton coming over and say, hey man, I'm really hungry. I worked out today. You got some bread? I know you make bread, so give me some bread. So let's say that he asks for it. For a friend of mine on his journey has come to me and I have nothing to set before him. But that means I don't have any bread to give him. He said, hey, give me a loaf of bread. I'm like, dude, I don't have any. And he will answer from within, because he's inside the house, do not trouble me. The door is now shut. My children are with me in bed. I cannot rise and give you anything. So I'm talking to him through the Ring camera. He's out on the front porch. Like, hey, I don't have any bread. We're all in bed. Kids are snuggled up. Sorry, man. Sorry, can't help you. And then Jesus says, I say to you, though he will not rise and give him anything because he is his friend, yet because of his persistence, he will rise and give him as much as he needs. So, whose persistence?
Ours.
The one knocking.
That person knocking, right?
Because of my friend's persistence to continually knock on the door. Fine, I'll get up. Hold on a second. You're going to wake up the kids. You're going to wake up my wife. The dog's going to start barking. Hold on, just time out. Let me come Let me come open the door and I'll let you in. Like, I don't know. I don't have any loaves of bread, but here's a granola bar or whatever it is. Okay. So the persistence there on the receiver generates a desire for us to give something to them. And Jesus is saying here, God operates a lot of that in the same kind of way. He wants us consistently asking Him for the things in our lives in a way where God's like, yeah, I don't know if you really want that. I don't know. We'll see. And you can pray. Okay, fine. Fine, Justin, I've heard enough. Whoa, I get it. You prayed now for 88 days straight. Here, boom. You've been very persistent in this. This is the example that Jesus is giving. Red letters, okay? And it says here, verse 9, and I tell you, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. God is saying, be that persistent person. Don't say, hey, do you got some bread in there? No, we're all in bed. All right. That's not a relationship with God. That's asking Him to be the vending machine where you go, thanks, God, I'm out. He doesn't want that. He wants that relationship. So I'll answer you this. My family, when Santa comes on Christmas morning or Christmas Eve overnight, he gives gifts to our kids. Santa, when he comes to visit my house, doesn't give gifts to all the neighbors' kids on the streets from the Santa that's at my house, which is me.
I'll say you and your wife.
Shh. Kids might be watching.